So in this video, we are going to talk about how to graph points on a graph. How to place points or put points or graph points or um, put points on a graph. Points are really called coordinates. They're made up of an x and a y value. A graph is really called a coordinate plane. So we'll talk about that when we get into that part of the lesson. But before we even do that, and I don't do this a lot, but I'm going to share a little bit about my personal life so you guys get to know me. I do this at the beginning of the year, and throughout the year I'll share a little bit. But I'm going to tell you about the woman that I almost married, Ms Graf. Stephanie Graf was her name, actually. But Ms Graf is what she would be to you guys. So Miss Graf and I met. We actually lived in the same like apartment complex, kind of. So in order, this is for online kids mainly, since I'm recording it, but I also do it with my in-person classes as well. So when we lived there, it was a very cool apartment complex. So it'll help you to understand the story if I tell you a little bit about the apartment complex. So in the apartment complex, we had pool on the top floor, so it was like a rooftop pool, which was super cool. There was actually a gym on the very bottom floor. I lived right in the middle of the building, so this little light blue square is me right here. And I really liked the apartment, but the only thing wrong with the apartment was that it had elevators on the ends of the hallways. So like this was, I think I can write on this real quick. Let me do it. So I'll write in red, I guess. So hopefully this works. Yeah, so elevator was over here at the end. Elevator was over here, and there were two of them. So at least they had two, I guess. But like I said, they were at the ends of the hallway. And you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? The elevators were at the big end of the hallway. But here's the problem. So again, I live right here. So for those of you that have been in my class for a while, you know already that I'm a fantastic artist. So, and I prove that every once in a while, like right now. So I live right here, or lived, right? That's me, right there in the middle. Ooh, there we go. And anytime I wanted to go, like, let's say to the gym, so if I was going to the gym, there was no way to just like kind of go straight down. I had to go all the way to the elevator. So in this case, I'd go, walk all the way left to the elevator, down the hall. I would not walk through the apartments. I would walk down the hall. And then once I got to the elevator, then I could finally go down to the gym. If I went to the pool, I'd actually go the other direction. So the entrance was on the other side. So I'd come this way to the elevator. So this time I would head right to the elevator. So this time I headed left, obviously. This time I'd head right. And then I'd go up to the pool, up the elevator to the pool. So Miss Graf moved. She actually lived in a few different apartments. One time she lived here. So again, I will use my fantastic artist skills. There we go. That's Miss Graf. She had long hair. And so if I went and saw Miss Graf again, I'd go left to the elevator to see her. When she lived in that, I would go left. And then I would go up in the elevator to get to her floor. One time she lived, I think she lived like over here somewhere. So one time she was here. Again, she had long hair. So fantastic artist. So then I would go to the right elevator this time. And once I went right to the elevator, then I could go down to get to her floor. I think one time she even lived like sort of in the middle, like somewhere in here. I don't remember if it was one floor or two floors. There we go. So now again, I could go left or right. This time I'd probably go right, and then I would go up on the elevator and get to her floor. But it was kind of a pain because every time I wanted to go anywhere, I would have to go left or right, right? I'd go left or right, depending on where I needed to get to. go left or right first. I'd get on the elevator. Once I got to the elevator, then I could go up or down on the elevator. So, other than that, it was a super cool apartment complex. If you haven't already figured it out yet, this is not a true story. It's totally made up. Some of you will act like you knew it was made up in class, but you didn't know it was made up. Anyway, it's a fake story, totally fake. You may or may not have guessed. I didn't show you the name. Her name was this, Ms Graf. If you didn't understand what I was saying, Ms Graf, Graf. This is about graphing. It has nothing to do with my personal life. Sorry. It is only about graphing, because what I've learned that even though we've been graphing for a long time, we still get confused sometimes on which direction we go first, and then obviously which direction we would go after that. So whenever you think of graphing, if you're putting a point on a graph, you need to think about Ms Graf. You need to think about the woman that Mr. Gill almost married, Ms Graf. And you need to think, well, when Mr. Gill went anywhere, first he had to go left and right to get to an elevator. Then, once he went left and right, then he could go up and down to get to the floor he needed to be on. So left and right first, up and down is your second step. So now let's apply that real quick. If this is my X and Y axis, this is my coordinate plane, my graph. I have an X axis, which is right here. X is always the horizontal axis. Y is always the vertical axis. So again, this is the X axis. This is the Y axis, the up and down axis. They're not even really lines on the graph. They're just kind of like imaginary lines, and we use them to tell us where to put points on the graph when it comes to using data, which we're not really going to get into in this class, but that's the point, is to use them to put points on a graph so that we can analyze data. So anyway, x-axis, y-axis. So and then when we have a coordinate, like you see these coordinates over here, 3, 1, 4, -2, -1, -3, 2, 0, all of those, all of those are in the format of x first and then y. Hopefully you remember that. Since x is first and this is the x-axis, that's why we go left and right first, because the first term is x. So we need to go left and right on the x-axis to get to that number. The second term is y, right there. So second, we go up and down. But if you ever get confused, you can remember that x is first because that's just alphabetical order, x, y, z. You can remember that you go left and right first because of the story about Ms Graf. Mr. Gill had to go left and right first to get to the elevator. Then he could go up and down to get to the correct floor. So real quick, I'll plot a few points for you. You see this 3, 1 right here. So again, x is the first value, y is the second value. Oh, that was an accident, but that's fine. We'll leave it there. So if x is the first value, I need to go kind of all the way out here to 3, and then I'm going to go all the way, or not all the way up, but up to 1. And that's where I'm going to put my point, is right there. Now you don't need these lines that I drew in, you just need the point. And you don't put a point here. This is not 2 points, it's 1 point. You use the x and y together to figure out where to put it. So again, I'm going to just go ahead and put the point right there. I went to the 3 first, left and right first, because that'd be like my elevator being over here and my elevator being over here. So I go left or right first, and then up or down. And I go to +1 because it's +1. So next point, I would go all the way out to 4, and then down to -2. Because in this case, I have 4, -2. Oh, I meant to do that in green, so I'm going to do that in green. I'm just going to put the point this time, though. So I go out to 4 and down to -2. So now I'll do the one in black, which is -1, -3. So now I still go left and right first. But since it's a -1, I need to go to the left first to -1. -1 right there. And then I go down to -3. So that would be that point. And then last, I have the one in blue, 2, 0. So again, left and right first to get to the elevator. So I go to 2, and then I don't go anywhere from there. If you'll notice, it's 2, 0. The y value is 0, so we don't go up or down at all. We simply get to the value of 2, and we just put a dot right on 2. We don't go up or down. So there are those 4 points graphed on the coordinate plane, which you just call a graph probably, but it's really a coordinate plane. If you have any questions on that, we don't really go in depth in class on this anymore. This is kind of like pre-work before we do linear equations. So you should have already seen this video. I may or may not tell the story in class about Ms Graf, but if you have any questions on this, make sure you get with me in class.